Should you work out once or twice a day? Do you need to do doubles, even if you're not an elite athlete? Today, we're going to take on the age-old question of singles versus doubles in training. So let's get into it. First, I want to start with a little bit of my history. So way back in high school when I was a 4-minute miler, and I was really known for running a ton. In high school, I ran 100 miles a week, and my entire senior track season and before, I was above 80 miles a week every single week until the state meet in track. So I ran a ton. But if you looked at that mileage, my high school coach mostly split it into doubles. So even when I was running 100 miles a week, which comes out to, 14, 15 miles a day, it was 8 and 8 or 7 and 7, meaning 7 miles in the morning, 7 miles in the afternoon. Now, part of the reason we did this was because at my high school, we were limited to running on campus. So we could only run essentially a little under a 1.5 mile loop, tracing around the whole campus and everywhere we could go. And that was it. So most of us, kind of like swimmers, got mind-numbingly bored if we just did loop after loop after loop. So we split it. Meaning we had morning practice where we'd go 7 or I'd go 7, and afternoon practice where I'd run 7 on the easy days. The second part of it is I was training in Texas, and this often allowed me to get the volume in. Because if you've ever trained in the heat and humidity of Houston, Texas, let me just tell you, the longer you go, the more and more it sucks. Cardiac drift goes up, heart rate, it just goes crazy, even if you're running 7-8 minute miles and slow. It just takes a toll on you. So splitting it allowed you to accomplish more. Now, that's my story and background. I want to investigate, does that help us? Should we consider that? Let's go down the rabbit hole of some science and history to explore this. So first off, traditionally when we think of doubling, the way it goes is you build up your mileage in singles, and then you hit some point where you're like, it kind of sucks to run all this miles only in singles. I'm going to add some doubles. I think that's the wrong approach to do it. I think adding doubles once you've gotten to decent mileage misses the point in some of the benefits. And we'll go through that. So there's a couple different theories on why doubles may work. So first off is what I'd call the recovery theory. And it goes like this. When we split the runs up, it allows us to handle a little bit more, so we can accumulate a little bit volume or load intensity as well, because we're splitting the load up. Yes, we're working out twice a day sometimes, but instead of doing 12 miles, we get to do 8 and 4 or 7 and 5. It's a little bit easier because we're not going all at once, which kind of beats up the body a little bit more in terms of pounding, fatigue, etc. And there's some data on this. So let's consider a couple different factors here. Is A, if you look from a muscle damage standpoint, especially if we're not looking at intense stuff, you'll tend to actually have lower muscle damage when you split it up versus a single long run. It makes sense, right? Do a single long run, it's more load. At least when I double, even if I'm doing the same volume or similar volume, I get hours and hours between to kind of restore both the muscle and the glycogen, so that I start that second run not in a totally depleted state, but a slightly more recovered state to keep that volume. Second off, there's the hormonal theory of this from a recovery standpoint. So if you look at recovery hormones like growth hormone in our body, what happens is during easy runs, you usually get a very quick and heavy increase of growth hormone. So one study found that from 0 to about 40 minutes of easy exercise, growth hormone goes up 550%. Huge bump. But then as you go on, it still increases, but at a much lower rate. So for instance, from 40 to 60 minutes, another additional 20 minutes, you only increase another 40% or so. Okay. The point is, if you look at growth hormone, which we know plays a role in recovery, is you get most of that bang for your buck early, and then it levels off. So if you're doing two 40-ish minute runs, do you get that growth hormone bump twice, which helps recovery, versus once and then it comes back down? Again, that's a little mechanistic. We don't have the research to tell us how or if that impacts things, but it's worth considering because we get the same bump not only in terms of growth hormone, but you also think of it in terms of like blood flow increases, movement, etc. Two shorter runs, two bumps in the day can aid recovery. This is why athletes often do like shakeout jogs or warm-ups or etc. to kind of help get the blood flowing and feel a little bit better and change that muscle tension. Okay, that's theory number one. It allows us to get a little bit more and sometimes even recover a little bit faster. The second theory, which kind of goes with it, kind of goes against it, is what we call the depletion theory. Meaning that second workout or second easy run is done in a slightly depleted state. Even if you've had hours of recovery, maybe your glycogen isn't fully restored. Maybe your muscles aren't fully recovered. And when we do that second workout in a slightly depleted state, it gives us a increased stimulus, which allows us to adapt a little bit more. So think of it, there was a study a couple years ago that was on, I think it was cycling. Don't quote me on this. But what they did is they compared athletes who either did a normal schedule where they went hard, easy every other day. So hard workout, maybe some intervals, easy, cycling, then hard workout, easy. And they just did that once a day, every other day. And then they compared that to a group that did hard and easy in the same day and then took the next day off so that they could keep the total volume and load the same. So what you're looking at is something along the lines of doing an easy cycling session in the morning and then a harder session in the afternoon. So what these researchers did is they had a group cycle easy in the morning and then come back with a hard workout in the afternoon. And what they found after the results of doing this for several weeks is that essentially mitochondria activity and aerobic enzyme activity increased more that did it twice in the same day versus those that did it hard, easy, the traditional alternating hard and easy. Now, performance improvement in each group improved about the same, which is important to note. So same results in terms of performance, different in terms of like enzymatic activity increases. Now, what this gets at is there's a little, probably a bang for our buck in terms of like training in a slightly depleted state is what they hypothesized. It could be a number of other things, but that tends to be where the science and research goes right now because we're doubling up the stressor, even though it's separated by space. If you look at some modern training and iterations, which we'll talk about in a future episode coming up, is you can see this in kind of the Norwegian double threshold model where they do a threshold workout in the morning and afternoon. You can see this in Canova's special block training where he does double workout in the same day. Now, this isn't easy and hard, it's hard and hard, but that can have a similar effect, even more so because you're doing two depleting activities. So that second one is definitely going to be started in a depleted state. All of this is to manipulate the stimulus and adaptation. Now, I'm going to be honest. Do we have any research that tells us this is better than this? No. It's simply really hard to do, A, and B, it hasn't been done. Even if you look at some interesting mice studies, it kind of points us in the same direction of, something is happening when we double, but we don't have that clear of a picture. And I think that's where we have to turn to theory and history. So theory, again, we can take the diminished or the depleted and the recovery and combine those together. If we're looking at doubling on two easy runs, It allows us to get about the same volume or maybe even more and recover off of it, allowing us to consistently get higher volumes of work with often lower injury rates. Okay? Why lower injury rates? Because if we look at the fatigue mechanisms for overuse injuries like Achilles tendonitis and knee tendonitis stuff and IT band is triggered if we look at overuse by, again, repetitive use and not having the recovery cycle in line. And if we split that double, what happens is it puts less of a load and gives that muscle tendon unit a little bit of time to bounce back, even though you're working out twice in the same day. Okay, so it allows us to accumulate a little bit more load. We still get those hormone boosts, etc. We can also look at this from the depletion standpoint, which I think is more along the double threshold or the easy run plus the workout. And this is where it gets kind of nuanced and complicated, but I'm going to simplify it for it. When we come to doubles, you have to ask, why are you doing this in the first place? If it's to accumulate a little bit more of an aerobic stressor while taking care of injury or taking care of injury risk, you'll probably want to double up your easy runs. If you're saying, hey, I need to get more of a stressor and boost out of my harder workouts, then we might need to start doing some double thresholds or before that, or double workouts. Before that, mixing the easy and a double hard workout, meaning just like the study on cyclists where we go either easy in the morning and then hard in the afternoon. Similar, you can do this, although I don't always recommend it, but for some marathoners you can do something like a long run on a Saturday and then a moderate workout on a Sunday. That moderate workout, you're not recovered from the long run. So even though it's not a double, you're starting in a depleted state. Allows you to get some of your bang for your buck for your workout. All right. So breaking this all down, who should double, why, and when? Okay. Let's start with the novice or beginner, or not even beginner. We'll call it the intermediate athlete. Double shouldn't even be a concern until you start, you're fit enough to train. And here's where I think doubles play a role. So first off, if you need to accumulate volume and you have constraints like I did in high school, right? Schedules, weather, etc. Or you have an injury history where volume, not frequency, is the likely trigger. Now, sometimes there's only one way to test this, which is to try it. But if volume is a frequent trigger, meaning every time you get over an hour plus a day, you start to get injured. What I would do, add a double in. Split it down the middle so it's an easy double, meaning 30 and 30 instead of a 60-minute run, whatever have you. What we're doing there is getting our way to try and accumulate volume in an easier way. Now, for masters runners especially, we can even do this with adding cross training, right? Add some cross training in the morning, come back with easy run in the afternoon, or vice versa, depending on your history here. Allows us to accumulate load. The second part is, for the easy recovery method for doubles, is this. As you're accumulating load, you look at your easy days where the goal is not, I need to get the long single to get this stimulus, such as a long run, but your goal is, I need to get volume in to keep my aerobic adaptations but recover well. That's a place where you start adding split doubles. So for example, if you have a schedule where you have a Monday hard workout, Thursday hard workout, Saturday long run, right? After that Monday hard workout, on Tuesday, instead of doing your 12-mile run, you might do 6 and 6. Why? Because your goal isn't after the hard workout, especially coming off the long run on Saturday, after a hard Monday workout, it's just to recover. And if you need to maintain the volume, but you're looking at how do I recover and bounce back, split the double. The other case for doubles is the workout double. And I think here, this I wouldn't use for intermediate. I wouldn't use for novices, obviously. I would save this for advanced runners who are looking for a way to get a little more bang for their buck and take a slightly riskier shot at adaptation. And that's where we start doing. I would start with double easy and hard, meaning one easy session, one hard. And then eventually maybe trying the double threshold, double workout model. Now there, you have to be careful, meaning making sure going into and out of that, you're recovered, because you can't dig yourself a hole and not pay that price. You got to be able to bounce back. I promise future episode, double threshold, we're going to go all into it. But to summarize, here's kind of my thoughts. Doubling is typically thought of as an advanced technique that you wait until you run a lot of miles and then you start adding doubles. I think that's wrong. I think it's another way, if you have the ability, meaning with your life, job, etc. It's another way to increase volume in a slightly safer way sometimes because of the fatigue mechanics of running prolonged versus twice a little bit shorter. Okay. And when we look at twice a little bit shorter, I love more even split than, odd split, meaning like go 5 and 5 instead of 7 and 3. Why? Because if the emphasis is recovery, the splitting it down the middle maximizes that. If the emphasis is still getting that longer aerobic stimulus, then go for the odd split, meaning, 7 and 3, where one is much longer than the other. Okay. But anyways, the point is, if you're trying to figure out how to increase your performance, but you keep running into problems of increasing volume, I would try the splitting the easy days. First with cross training, and then second with runs to see if you can adapt and handle that better. It's a safer way to get volume. Second part is the hard workout double. Save that for when you need it. Don't go there until you need to go there. Ingebrigtsen goes there because he needs to go there. He's trying to maximize his time under threshold. Most of us have not spent enough time doing regular threshold runs to need to get to that point where we double it up. But as I said, I'll go through it in a future episode. So there you go. There's the Steve Magness take on doubles versus singles. It differs a little bit from the traditional, Arthur Lydiard, go run as much as you can in singles to maximize that length. But often, that pushes us to a place where most people can't handle it now. And we have to remember the context of their time. And also, Lydiard tended to do longer stuff when he was building the capacity versus maintaining it. When he was maintaining it, you look at the workouts, they're not quite as long. It's not 100 miles a week, end on end with lots of singles. There's doubles included. Often easy shakeout with a harder workout in there as well. So even Lydiard's group used doubles. If you looked at the American usage of this, a lot of the single culture came in with running with the Buffaloes, Mark Wetmore at the University of Colorado. Great approach, but they did that to prioritize, A, they were at altitude, and B, they were college athletes who found it easier to get, one workout in per day and then be done so that they could call it for, going to college and living that life. So again, sometimes our constraints dictate our training. So if you haven't yet, check it out. Try some doubles, start with cross training and easy, maybe add some workouts in. We'll go into workouts and double thresholds later. If you enjoyed the channel, thanks so much for listening. Check out my new book, When the Inside Game. It's coming out shortly. If you pre-order it, you get my 100+ page coaching ebook, The Principles or Elements of Coaching, which goes into training, psychology, everything you can imagine on how to run and get better, not just running, but life. And you get this wonderful book on the mental side of performance and redefining what it means to strive for success. It's based a lot on my career in coaching, running, and whistleblowing. So check it out. Order today. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of me diving into the science of training, endurance, and coaching.